G'day everyone, welcome to Lubrication Explained. Today I've got a discussion with Mika Perttula of Fluid Intelligence. They're an interesting company because they provide lubrication services, but they do so with a service model. By that I mean it's very different to how most lubricant suppliers work, where you sell on a dollar per litre basis or a dollar per gallon or dollar per unit volume. So they're providing a kind of end-to-end solution which is predicated on a final product. I think that that's a really powerful thing because it, in my mind, aligns the KPIs of your lubricant supplier and your end user in a way that dollar per litre doesn't really do. So anyway, we got into some of the details about how that actually works and the mechanics of it, and how difficult is it to get procurement specialists to sort of understand a different paradigm. I thought it was really interesting. Let's get into it. All right, thank you so much, Mika from Fluid Intelligence, for agreeing to come on. I guess this is a podcast or show. Still haven't figured out what to call this yet. But if you could please give us a little bit of your background, maybe some like your co-founders and what Fluid Intelligence does, I think that would be a really good place to start.
Great, thank you, Rafe. It's great to be here and great. So my background, I'm coming from new business product service development areas, and I've been working with quite a few startups and consulting quite a few big organizations over the past years. And my co-founder partners, they have a pretty extensive experience from different parts of like operational excellence and lubrication excellence from various different industries. But also from business change management, digitalization, master data management, and analytics. So basically, what we are doing, we are combining all of these different aspects, and this way, we are not basically providing an analytics or data service, but really like a holistic end-to-end solution for our customers. So we are not delivering the data and analytics, but really also the actionable insights and actions. And depending on our customers' own organization, of course, they might take some part of mitigation actions themselves, or then we can something to play and do it for them. But really a holistic end-to-end offering for the customers. So that's basically our background.
Yeah, okay. Really, really cool. So the way that I understand kind of what you guys do as a business is there is a data and analytics portion, which we'll get into, right? That's sort of the, I think you guys call it Fluid Eye is the actual product name.
That's correct.
But there's also, let's say, lubrication services that could go along with it. So it's not like a one-size-fits-all package. You guys kind of determine which components of the service offering a customer might need or want. So there's kind of a digital end, and there is, if you like, a physical end. What proportion of the business would you say is digital versus, let's say, like hands-on practical?
Well, we started our activities like 5 years ago, and I would say that at that point, 80 to 90% of the activities were like professional services, hundreds of lab samples each year. Different kind of like oil reconditioning, flushing, cleaning, filtration projects, and so on. And of course, the smaller part was Fluid Eye side, because that was starting point of the solution development. And but now I would say that it's more or less half and half. Of course, in the Nordics, that is our home market. Professional service side could be somewhat higher, because many times, I said it's not only the analytics side, but you always need those concrete actions. So we help our customers in different challenges. But then again, as we are on the other hand working globally, then most of the global activities are then digital, because of course that's much more easier to deliver, and well, depending on the country and maybe also depending on the industry, we are seeing that there are like different levels of like lubrication excellence in-house, and also equipments that our customers are using. So in some case, customer just take the advice and basically they run the whole like reconditioning program and other activities, or in some other case we can provide like some rental units for filtration and so on.
Yep. Okay. So one of the things that I sort of wanted to talk about today, and what got me interested in the work that you guys do, is this idea of maybe we call it lubrication as a service.
Yeah.
So maybe to take one step back, could you maybe explain firstly what we mean by as a service, right? So there's a lot of different industries. People would be pretty familiar with software as a service or entertainment as a service. What do people mean when they say SaaS?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and especially bring it in this context. And well, that was basically the leading idea when we founded the company 5 years ago. And of course, there are different levels of lubrication as a service. So in its purest format, basically, we would include everything over there. So what we did first, we took all the lubrication-related costs and tasks in a list, understood that what's the overall cost for the customer when they are running a lubrication program in a period of 1 year. What are the activities, and also which other domains it links. So basically, in its purest format, we could have basically bought our customers' oil. So it wouldn't be like their asset anymore, but they would have like a fixed monthly or annual fee of a guaranteed lubrication performance. So I guess that's you could link that to more familiar idea of like a chemical asset management or chemical leasing. So that's like the purest format of the lubrication service. And of course there are different like levels of variations, so that we could bring still the visibility to our customers and like guaranteed lubrication performance, but then customer might have some part of the assets like filtration units, and they would be by basically paying of the fluids and so on. Or the other extremity is basically as like a lubrication advice as a service. So that would really be more like like information service, and then it's up to the customer really to grasp the benefits. But when we started, of course, we had an idea that because we have seen so much outsourcing of different tasks in many industries, and we saw that there was not that much in-house lubrication excellence anymore in many customers and partners organizations. So that's why we were starting from the idea that we can really bring it back to the customers with a fixed fee, guaranteed performance, and so on. But well, starting this like 5 years ago, we saw quite many like open questions and customers many times, and many industries were quite maybe puzzled with the idea that can you really do that, and how can you provide like a guaranteed lubrication service and so on.
So maybe just to jump in there.
Maybe we're a bit too early.
Yeah.
So idea.
I was thinking maybe just to jump in, because I think in most people's minds, when you say something like software as a service, people think of like Microsoft 365, right? That they have on their computer. Yeah. You pay whatever it is, $18 a month or something to use the Microsoft suite of services. When you think of entertainment as a service, people usually think, Netflix, Disney Plus. Again, you pay a fixed fee. So in most people's heads, the as a service moniker, if you want to call it that, applies to a subscription service, right? So it's a fixed fee per month. Now, the service that you seemed, or the business model you seem to be outlining, kind of gets you to that, where it seems to be a fixed monthly fee, but it's more tied to outcomes. Is that correct? Because you're guaranteeing a certain level of performance, and so you're saying that company X pays for that outcome rather than, per unit time. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, of course, it needs to tie really closely on the outcomes, because how we can do it is that when we know that what kind of machinery we have, what kind of lubrication we're using over there, then we can basically agree with the customer that what level of purity, what level of like chemical composition we are targeting, and once we meet those goals and also maintain the lubrication's performance over the service period, then we are basically delivering the service that we are promising. And of course, it might mean that we have quite a few different activities along the way. So one is of course having the online heartbeat of the lubrication and machine performance from the digital tools, but also then there might be many different activities like filtration, some oil reconditioning, and other activities that we need to take. But at the end of the day, of course, what we need to see is that we are meeting the lubrication goals, and that's basically then outlines basically the service framework for us. So yeah.
So that's interesting. So in many ways, the business model of agreeing to a certain set of KPIs with the customer, that in many ways drives you to a more digital platform, right? Because the only way that you're going to be able to monitor and agree upon those KPIs is if you have more data, right?
Yeah,
and that's kind of the only way that you're going to be able to meet those KPIs on your part as well. So that actually drives you to having more data, which means, more oil sampling, probably, we'll get into this more sort of inline sensors and things like that, because it benefits you to have more data about the application, so that you can know that you're on track to meet your customers' set KPIs, right? So that's an interesting kind of way of going about it. Is sort of bottom up rather than top down from a data gathering standpoint.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So of course we need to have like a real time visibility to the performance, and but of course you could do this also manual. We have some customers and industry peers who have basically done this traditional way. So there has been some individual persons or small teams who have dedicated in the topic, and just by having quite a frequent lab sampling, then they've been able to do quite dramatic changes. Like in one case, they reduced the oil consumption from 83 tons to 17 tons in a year, and that was done manually, but it was like a full-time work for one person. And of course, because we are seeing that there's many organizations are having like limited resources, so that's why of course we want to automate that and use digital tools and means to achieve this benefit and like spread this opportunity for us as many as possible. So, but yeah, it is coming from the data that we are seeing. But I need to also highlight that it's not only like digital data. We are still taking quite a few lab samples, and then when you combine like real-time data with like static data, then you are really getting the best possible visibility of the machine and fluid performance.
Yeah. Okay, so I would like to come back to the sort of the data and the analytics
Yeah, please do.
piece in a second. But one thing I just wanted to quickly ask you about when it comes to the business model, because I've dealt with my share of procurement teams in my career, and one thing that they may be not known for is flexibility. So in general, they have a certain expectation from a lubricant supplier, which is generally predicated on dollars per liter.
Yeah.
Right now, you come in and you're saying, "I'm going to give you, you're going to pay in dollars per outcome."
Yeah.
How do they respond to that? So my question is kind of has a couple of parts to it. Do they push back? And if they do, how are you able to get over that hurdle? How are you able to convince them that this is a good and robust solution for them?
Yeah, that's really like the core question of the whole model, and we did our part of overcoming those challenges, and even before talking with the purchasing organization, first we need to talk with our colleagues within the customer industries. Of course, first thing is that how can we really divide that what's on our responsibility, what's on customers, and really this that what if something happens? So who pays the bill? Basically, end of the day, that's the key question, and it took some time, and of course we were seeing from our customers that some teams were much more prepared to take this kind of model into use, and they saw the benefits that well, maybe it came from their understanding to lubrication and so on, so that they knew that this can really be done, and these guys can deliver the service. But then again, the other part of the people we met, they have been much more hesitant to take the service, and well, of course, these are relevant questions. Fortunately, we were able to work with our insurance company, then the model, so they understood that what we are doing, what are we targeting, and how we are doing it. And like without their support, this wouldn't have been a feasible model. So once we were able to tell that like one of the biggest insurance companies is basically providing then the insurance for this service, then of course that helped us a little bit. But of course, still the biggest question is end of the day that the model itself. We've been doing like oil filtration, oil reconditioning, oil changes, time-based overhauls like last 100 years, and now we are turning the model upside down and basically saying that well we don't need to do all of these things, but we do those when it's needed.
Yep.
Because we know now much better that what's happening inside of the fluid circulation and so on. So
that's really interesting. Again, that's maybe an insight that I hadn't anticipated, is that the way that you give assurance to your customers is actually by going through your insurer. And what I think is interesting about that is that once again that drives you to data-heavy platforms, right? Because I mean, I've got a couple of mates who are in the insurance industry, and the one thing I know about the insurance industry is that they love, like, the more data the better, right? Because they can make a more informed and accurate, well, not even a decision, but it's kind of a more accurate assessment of the risk, I guess.
Yeah, that's true, and of course for that we need to have of course like a regular detailed lab sample data, and then really good like online visibility with performance. So combining that, it's then basically the backbone for the service, so that we know that what's happening, what kind of actions we need to take, and when. So
So how are
but
you?
yeah,
How are you then?
that was an interesting journey altogether.
Yeah, I can imagine. So now, as we start to sort of get into the data conversation, how do you guys? Um, what's kind of being done on the back end to organize all these different streams of data? Because you've already talked about so oil analysis. So standard lab sampling is an important part of building out your models, and then you've got inline, well, real time sensors, as I understand it,
Yeah,
as well. And then you're probably, in the previous conversation that we had, you were also talking about offline data as well. So maybe,
that's true.
information that's contained within, a maintenance management system, and trying to incorporate all of these different data streams into actionable insights. So, so how are you guys taking that approach? What are you guys doing with what could be hundreds of different streams of data?
Yeah, that's really the work that is like continuous, and I think it's just taking more and more bandwidth of our activities, but and also as in the beginning we discussed that our activities were mainly focused on like professional service and like oil condition monitoring, because lubrication service wasn't that like hot seller in like 5 years ago. So and now we basically provide like a holistic fluid asset management and the actionable insights. So there are different layers, and as you said, different types of data. So everything boils down to like the data structure and the data management. How do we manage the data, and it's really like a daily process. So every time when we are planning to release some new feature or are seeing some new data stream or demand from our customers, then basically we always need to go back to our data model and see that does it support the new feature, or how easily we can bring new data in, and but it's really that we need to keep the data like consistent and complete, because depending on the quality of the data that you are bringing in, as good the analysis you are getting out of the system. So that's really something that we need to pay attention. And of course, part of the activities we can automate, but of course still reflecting back 5 to 10 years of our activities, there are lots of like data streams or data dumps that may not be that complete and holistic. So there's first cleaning the data, and then you can basically take that to the system. So and also we need to also consider the time horizons, as you mentioned. So we have like real-time data that comes from different kind of sensors, and all of those are basically telling us or talking different language. And then like static data, like lab analysis, but it can also be like super static, like standards, like cleanliness standards, or some machine specifications that are basically behind of our data, but where we can do like a correlation and analysis and so on. And then still the dynamic end of the data or activities is really the analytics models, formulas, some algorithms that we are using. So there are really many angles to this equation, but it really comes down to the data structure and the model, so that once you can keep that coherent and consistent, then it's much easier to bring new data and also to develop on top of that. But daily task for us.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I haven't got all that much experience with real-time sensors. Um,
Mm.
I've got a fair amount of experience with, standard oil analysis. One of the things which I've always found is kind of good about in oil analysis is, uh, let's say, the accessibility of the data. So, if I am the customer and I'm
Yeah,
using some kind of third party lab, they usually have the capacity for me to go in, download the raw data, and then I can do whatever I want with it. Um,
yeah.
is that the case with a lot of these real time sensors where they just output, let's say it's vibration data, and it's freely accessible to anyone? Well, not to anyone, but to the sensor owner.
Yeah, I think that's really good question. And if we talk about sensors, first of all, of course there are range of sensors, and as I just mentioned, those talk quite a different languages, and also that how do you interact with those. Some sensors basically, when you connect those, start pushing the data. Some other sensors you need to have like a program that basically manages the sensor and operates the data collection and so on. But then when we come to the cloud end, and so how accessible the data is, and if you are basically buying like a machine from some OEM, then are you getting the data from there or not? I think that today we are seeing it's almost like a prerequisite from most of the customers and industry actors that they don't want to have like 10 different dashboards or 10 different solutions to use. So I think that integration and utilizing APIs for that are quite common nowadays. So you might have like one or two systems where you are basically getting the data and the holistic view of your machinery of fleet performance. So yeah, of course we are getting the data over there, and but of course there might be some like proprietary solution providers who don't want to share the data, but seeing it from the customer perspective, it should be like a prerequisite that you are getting the data in a form or in a platform that you are using, like some CMMS system or other system.
Yeah, yeah. So that sort of, I guess, customer preference seems to point towards the idea that in the IIoT game, or whatever you want to call it, that open source will ultimately win, right? Because that would be customer preference over, you know, proprietary algorithms and things like that. Is that your sense of the landscape at the moment?
Well, I think that openness, at least how I understand like open source coming from the IT side, from my past, I'm sure how well that business model will fit into this equation, but in general, I think that more open models should be used, and so that we can really speed up the digitalization and get the benefits. Maybe I could also link that idea to something that we saw like 20 years ago in the Nordics when mobile business was developing. So we saw like GSMA and other like standardization. So basically, that's something that I haven't seen inside of this industry or business that much yet. So we are seeing like for example, like lab analysis standards or cleaner standards. So we have a common way of presenting the information and talking about that and interpreting the data. Then again, when we talk about like the IIoT side, then we have quite a few like internet standards over there that we can rely on. But what I haven't seen that much is really that any kind of like a dialogue about like standardizing or like digitalized content and the data inside of this domain, so that this could be potentially something that could speed up the whole industry. So if we have more common language to understand different like data streams and what it really means and how I can quickly analyze that, then that could just give a quite a huge push to the whole industry. So in terms of like digitalization and new business for many actors. And of course we need to remember that all of us, we have some kind of like proprietary technologies, data, algorithms, and so on. So of course you have like business secrets, but there must be some level of areas where we could maybe work together and set some kind of, if not standards, but like commonly agreed ways to understand and read and share the data. So I think that could be something boosting the industry.
Yeah, and maybe just a last question about sort of the way this plays out in the future, because I've seen, a couple of companies are starting to do this as a service model, right? So I think the one that jumps out is SKF, for example. I mean, is promoting the idea of, I think they call it rotation as a service, right? Now, obviously, as a bearing company, that makes sense for them. I mean, they could effectively charge by number of revolutions, right, for your equipment. But in a similar way, with you guys focusing on lubrication and them focusing on rotation, that element, whether it's the bearing or the lubricant, is only one part of a wider system, right? So with with a bearing is an enabler, but it's usually attached to whether it's a prime mover or a gearbox or whatever. In the same way, the lubricant is part of a system, whether it's a turbine or a compressor or a gearbox.
Yeah.
So for you guys to be able to guarantee lubrication quality, and for them to be able to guarantee the quality of the rotation, you almost need to have control over as many variables as possible. Is that kind of like a fair statement?
Yeah, I think that you are right in that sense, that of course we need to, well, we discussed earlier that we need quite a bit of like online data to understand what's happening, and of course then once we have the data, we have done the root cause analysis and we provide the actionable insight either to our team, our customers' team, or even the machines directly with machine-to-machine commands. So we talk about like autonomous activities. So of course, we basically need to cover every bit of the equation. So to provide the service, but of course, depending on these factories or fleet owners' own like lubrication and reliability competence, there are like variations, and it could be that it's on like a lubrication advice as a service, or the other end, if the strategy is that they are outsourcing all non-strategic activities, then it would be really like a turnkey like lubrication service.
Yeah, because I guess I was just thinking about the components that affect, lubricant quality in air quotes. Is, let's say, for example, I'm trying to guarantee the quality of the lubricant or the life of the lubricant, maybe. Let's say, for example, filtration plays a component in that.
Yeah.
So now, in order to guarantee the quality of the lubricant, I want to have control over the filtration. Well, the other thing that also governs lubricant life could be the temperature, let's say, that the turbine runs at. So now, as the lubricant provider, I want to have control over, the machine temperature. And we start to stray into territory where maybe we don't have that much control. So it almost feels like from here on, it becomes a land grab, right? Because you're trying to have control over as many variables as possible. But I think it'll be interesting to see how the industry kind of plays out, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think that temperatures sounds really, really simple measure in this whole equation, but many times it has quite a critical role. And of course, once you mentioned example of like turbine, then in our case, it's always like a continuous dialogue with our customers, so that we are seeing variations and some anomalies that may link to temperature. Then of course there's a dialogue with them, and so that then they are the party who basically controls the temperature or take the needed actions if needed. But yeah, as said, I think that we started 5 years ago this journey, and we've seen that gradually we are going towards digitalization. Pretty soon, lubrication service. But seeing the whole industry and as you mentioned that lubrication links to many areas within the organization. Like annual cost of unplanned downtimes for the whole industry is something like 600 billion, and like lubrication and related services, it's only that is something like 250 billion. So those are massive annual costs. And what we've seen lately, and as you mentioned, example as SKF, we've seen also some other cases where some big companies are targeting like a billion level lubrication service business in coming next 4 or 5 years. But still putting that in the context, like 2% of direct annual lubrication and related costs are like 5 billion. And if the world's biggest companies are targeting 1 billion, so there's a huge opportunity for all of us to basically work smarter, more automatically apply digitalization in our activities and process, and really target the 250 billion cost base, not to mention the big cost of unplanned downtime that many times have direct impacts of one or other form of challenge in the lubrication. So I think that, yeah, it's a big task for the whole industry.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Mika, thanks so much. I gained a lot of insight, I think, from that discussion, and I've certainly got some things that I want to take away and have a little bit of a think about. So really appreciate you sharing some of like the challenges, I guess, that you've come against over the last 5 years, trying to get this service model, in some ways accepted by industry.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting. And if anyone's got questions or comments, as usual, please leave them down below in the comment section. And we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Rafe.